hot off the press, you can now vibe code a Canvas app using an MCP server. Let's dive into it. Charles, what is this new feature?
Yeah, Canvas apps aren't dead, Josh. So this new feature was really surprising for us because we thought that there wouldn't be this much investment in Canvas apps. But it basically means that you can use GitHub Copilot or Claude Code, so your AI pair programmer, you can use a plugin in that to generate a Canvas app. So you talk to it in natural language, and it will build the YAML files that ultimately build your Canvas app. So shall we have a little bit of a dive into what the actual details are?
Yeah, let's do that. I'm excited to see what this can do, to be honest. Is it any good? Let's take a look, shall we?
Yeah, you'll definitely find out by the end of this. So as you can see from the screen, the documentation is already live and it's in preview at the moment. So that's really important to note. Now, how does it work? Well, basically, you have some prerequisites. So you need to install the .NET SDK. You need to make sure that you've got the GitHub Copilot CLI or Claude Code, so it's in your terminal. And then you install the plugin, which is really straightforward. And then you connect to it and you start using it. So pretty straightforward if you've been using these tools and if you've followed our Code App series. So let's go into a little bit of detail about like what does it actually do, because it probably seems a bit confusing at first. Well, basically, it's a plugin for AI, which means that it comes with a suite of different things. Like it comes with some skills, it comes with an MCP server, and it can do things like authenticate to your environment. So what it's going to do is it's essentially going to be like a co-author. So you're working in your Canvas app. This plugs into it. You talk to it, and it will generate some stuff and send it through to your Power App Studio. And then at that point, you can then save it, because if you don't save it at that point, you will lose it. So it's basically bringing it through to a kind of co-authoring session with you. Does that all make sense, Josh?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm hearing it's, in effect, it's an MCP server. We use natural language. It's going to generate a Canvas app. Feels a bit redundant given that we can create things like code apps, so doesn't it? So I am curious as to why this is now a thing.
So the way that I would say that this sits in the Microsoft ecosystem or Power Platform ecosystem is that it's something to help you where you have to use a Canvas app, where you have to build a Canvas app. So it might be because of licensing, so you can't pay for premium. We've had so many people in the comments on our videos saying Code Apps is premium, we can't use it. So then you have to use a Canvas app, and building it by hand is very slow and cumbersome, especially compared to today's technologies. So this tries to bridge that gap. But it's also for things like where a code app can't be run on a mobile phone at the moment in the mobile app. You have to use the browser. So maybe you want to use a Canvas app instead. This helps you get up and running very quickly with that, hopefully, but we'll see if it actually does the job. So this is just an overview as to what it is. What problem does it solve? We've basically explained what that is. So the plugin has like 3 different sections to it, essentially. So one for configuring the Canvas MCP, which is essentially just logging into the studio so that you can start authoring. And then the other 2, one is for generating. So this is where you build an app from scratch. And the other one is for editing. So you've got an existing app, you get it to plug into that and start changing things. Pretty straightforward, right? So now we'll look into the architecture and how it works. So basically, it has some skills that it uses, and it has some agents that use those skills, and then it has an MCP tool. So the 3 different skills that it has. So one for configuring the Canvas MCP. So this is basically checking if you've got your prerequisites sorted and then logging in and connecting. It's that concept. Generating the Canvas app is you're starting from scratch. And then editing the Canvas app is you've got something existing and you want to change it. And those 2 are very distinct from each other from the perspective of this plugin. But it makes a lot more sense when we look at the agents. So with the agents, we have a Canvas app planner. So this is where you want to build your app from scratch. This is going to plan it. So this is going to be speaking to your MCP server to say, like, what controls do I have available? What connectors can I use? What data sources can I use? What data sources are already connected? That kind of thing. And it can use things like describe control, which means tell me all of the parameters that I can use with a control. So let's say that it's a button and then you have an on select. So it tells it those kinds of things so that it understands when I'm generating this YAML, what is allowed, what's not allowed, what can I do? So it's that kind of thing. And then it has its generation screen builder, which is basically like, this is going to create your screens. This is going to build out the YAML. And then it's exactly the same for editing. So you have your planner for planning it, and then you have your actual editor for actually creating those YAML files or changing the YAML files.
That sounds fairly familiar as to what we've spoke about many a times in our videos, doesn't it? Where you've got this kind of plan, build, iterate kind of loop, and fairly common, I guess, workflow in AI development now, I guess. So it's good to see they're following that, which is nice.
Yeah. And these agents are being told, this is what you can do, this is what you can use, and this is what we don't want you to do. So it's trying to keep them within their limits, within their bounds. And then, of course, they're able to call tools, which are the MCP server tools. And within these, there are 8 of them. So there's one for listing the controls. These are all the controls you can use. One for listing the APIs. So these are all the connectors that you're allowed to connect to. One for listing the data sources. So these are data sources that you already have existing in your studio, and it's telling them what it can use immediately. And then you have your detail tools. So tell me what this control is about. Tell me what this connector is about. Like, what can I do with a connector? Get the schema for it as well. So finding out whether columns are required and things like that, which is really important if you're interacting with them. And then finally, you've got your validation tool, which is your compile canvas. So what this will do is it will actually check the PowerFX and make sure that it's legitimate PowerFX and that it's not going to return any errors. So that's really important. That's why you have this prerequisite of the .NET SDK. So that's going to run PowerFX and it's going to compile the app and check it, make sure there are no problems. If it finds problems, it will fix them until it can't find any more problems. And then finally, when everything's okay, it will then sync. And what that will do is it'll take those YAML files, it'll basically send them through to Power App Studio. And then you'll be able to go in the studio and you'll see that everything has changed. And I've tested this. So shall we look at what happens when we actually send that data through?
Yes, please. I'm really excited to see, given our experience with Canvas apps and where we've come from, people that love good UI, love good UX, very critical of bad examples of Power Apps. I'm very curious to see if this gets it right or whether it misses the mark. So yeah, let's dive into that.
Well. So when I ran the plugin for the first time, it came up with some options for me. I wanted to generate a brand new app and it said, would you like to create, I can't remember, like a task management app or something like that by default. So I thought, yeah, let's just choose that. I don't have to write any prompt. And they've already pre-configured this, so it's got to be great, right? And then this is what it created. So
My
yeah.
eyes.
So what went wrong here? Well, I looked at the skills that are behind the scenes. And basically what went wrong is there are some strange concepts that Microsoft have come up with for the design. And they're saying things like, be really bold, try out generating dark mode apps and that kind of thing. Well, if you're using modern controls and you're building a Canvas app, you probably don't want to go dark mode by default because modern controls just can't accept that. So what we've ended up with here is something where, like, if I play it, you can see that there's an all tasks button in the top right-hand corner. It's very difficult to see. There's hidden data in these statuses that we can't see. If I click on new task, it takes us to something where, again, there's some hidden information here. So yeah, I mean, it's not a great result, is it? So
Not good.
yeah.
Not accessible, not usable, pass. On to the
Yeah.
next one.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought, well, we can't just stop there. We have to ask it again. But this time I'm telling it that I wanted to build it in light mode. And I gave it a bit more instruction, but hardly anything at all because I wanted to really let it go and decide what it wanted to do. So then it generated this. Josh, what do you think?
No. It's better. I can see the core concept of this, but my mind is initially jumping to, why is there scroll bars on the cards? Why are the controls laid out in a way that doesn't feel intuitive? And why is that lovely plus button misaligned in the bottom? So is it more usable than what the last example was showing? Absolutely, or definitely maybe prove a concept. Would I want to give this to my users in production? Absolutely not. So no.
Yeah, completely agreed. So you can see that it's kind of got the right concept, but it's just not quite there yet. And what's interesting is that it does still have those telltale signs of being AI generated, like these left bars that are colored. That is what AI loves to do. And usually it will do them, if you're doing it in the pro code world, it will do them with like curved corners. It will follow the corners. But because it's Canvas app land, it can't do that. So it's doing ones that are kind of cut off and look a bit weird. And yeah, it doesn't understand the fact that with some of the controls, you get these internal scroll bars that are absolutely horrible. And they can be tricky to get rid of sometimes as well. So, I mean, yeah, it's not done a terrible job, but it definitely needs some work. The funny thing about all of this is that 4 months ago, I thought, yeah, I can vibe code a Canvas app. And in Perplexity AI, I gave it some YAML from Canvas apps that I had created. And I said, like, this is how you do this. This is how you do that. Can you generate a design for me for a brand new app? And it came up with this. So this timesheet app. And this timesheet app actually is pretty reasonable. It looks decent and it's very, very usable. It didn't come out with this exactly as it was. I just needed to change some alignment on something, I think. But it came out with something that was pretty good. So it shows that AI can actually do a good job. But Microsoft's current skills instructions are not quite the right ones that it should be doing. So it definitely needs some tweaking. But like Josh, you discovered this being published the other day, and I can see that there's already loads of activity in the GitHub repository. So they are working on it actively. So you can expect it to get better. But I think we need a call to our viewers to say, please, can you try using this? And then feedback to Microsoft what's good and what's not good, especially what's not good, so that then they can fix that and then we can see something better. Because for all of the people who can't use things like code apps, they need to have a better way of building Canvas apps, because at the moment it is too slow and difficult. This is that opportunity. But to be honest, there are still some blockers for lots of people. Things like you need the .NET SDK installed. Can you do that on your company machine? Maybe not. So that could be a problem. But also that you need to use AI. So can you have a GitHub Copilot or a Claude Code subscription? That's going to be a sticking point, especially for organizations where they're not willing to pay for Parrots Premium.
Yeah, highly regulated organizations as well. That's going to be a challenge. Your AI is taking over, but it's still not there everywhere, realistically. So there's definitely a lot of blockers.
Yeah, agreed. The other thing I wanted to point out as well is that, like, you can see in the fill of the home screen here that it's got CLR background. I mean, CLR backgrounds, on the surface of it, you'd be thinking, well, where is that coming from? Like, what does that even mean? And if you go and look at the app object and you look at formulas and you open it up, you'll see that they've put loads of things in here. And they've called them CLR for color. So that's what it's about, which is a strange naming convention. But
That's not
also,
clear. That's not clear to me. That in my mind is not color. That's clear and not following their best practices.
and also, like, how do you know that that comes from formulas? You have no idea, because it's just some random variable or phrase or whatever it is. So that's really bad. They've got the naming conventions completely wrong there. Where they're setting global variables, they're not calling them global variables, they're calling them var. So as you're using global variables and local variables and calling them all var, you start to get mixed up. Maybe you start having overlapping variables and you create this whole confusion for yourself. So like, I feel like they've done a decent job of naming a lot of the controls. Like main container, that's fine. And then when it comes to the form, from what I remember, they've got some decent naming for them, like BTN for button is decent. But yeah, they can really do a much better job of these. Like if you imagine with this being called BTN high priority, let's say you've got a high priority button on another screen. Well, there's no suffix or anything to tell you which screen it's from. So how do you know which screen you're working with? So there's definitely a lot of work that Microsoft need to do here. And it feels like these skills were created by someone who doesn't build Canvas apps. So they don't really understand how you're supposed to do it.
That's the crazy thing. There's a lot of knowledge in the community, and the best thing, like Charles mentioned, is feedback in the GitHub repo. Give as much feedback as you can so they can improve this. But Microsoft, there's loads of people in this community who have so much knowledge of Canvas apps. Reach out, ask. There's 2 people right here who'd be more than happy to give you some insight. Yeah, all I can hope for is that this does improve rapidly, be something more usable and more friendly for everyone.
Yep, absolutely. So yeah, we're looking forward to seeing if you try this out and hearing from you in the comments what you think about this. Even before you try it out, just tell us, what do you think? Is this a good idea, a bad idea? Are you going to use it? You're not bothered about it? So curious to know. And it'll be interesting to see what the direction of Canvas apps is with this news coming out. Like, are we going to see Canvas apps around for a much longer amount of time? Or is this just to bridge that gap between Canvas apps being phased out, just to keep people happy who aren't paying for premium yet? Yeah, interested to hear what you think, and thanks for watching.